All right, welcome to Ranting and Raving with the doldrums of the off season mercifully almost behind us, training camp around the corner, and before we know it, we'll have preseason and 2025 season. It was time to make some predictions. So it's the off season. We're allowed to be optimistic. So we're going to start with the optimist view of predicting the 2025 season. So to me, this is the call it the dead cat bounce. Pick your term, phrase, whatever. This is the everything goes right. Now, this is not the delusional. They go 14-2. Everything is like this is. I'm trying to be reasonable, but like reasonably, I think there's a path to about 10 wins, and we'll kind of go over that. I'll show the games that I think the path that I think would lead to a 10-win season at the very end. But I first want to kind of go into what has to break right for the Saints to be a 10-win team. So it starts with coaching. Um, I know some fans are going to say health, and you're going to remember those two games from the beginning of last year, but you also have to remember that those two games happened against two bad teams. The Cowboys were really bad last year, and the Panthers were pretty bad. Like they came on stronger towards the end of the year, and Bryce was playing better, but they were not a good team. So like, yeah, the Saints were really really good those first couple of games, and a lot of that was because they did a great job in designing the run game and Taysom as a chess piece before teams had a lot of film on what they were doing. Created a lot of spots. The O line blocked their asses off. All of these are true, and they dominated the run game, and that allowed Carr to, be a play action quarterback and operate under no pressure. And the Saints were awesome. The rest of the season happened too. Like they weren't some 13-win season, team that just like, oh my god, they got injured. Like that's Mickey's delusion. That's not what they were. And part of them not being that is coaching. Very poorly coached. They weren't better coached under Rizzi. Like they just weren't. Part of why he wasn't retained as the head coach. He's fantastic special teams coordinator. Was not a good head coach, and I'll get into a little bit of as we go through this. Some of the things that need to break right this year are stuff that he really could have and should have started when he took over. But when I say it starts with coaching, it's not just Kellen Moore. Although having a head coach who actually has a plan, a real plan, not just like, hey, everybody carry me, like was Dennis Allen's plan. Um, he needs to have a holistic vision. He needs buy-in from players and coaches. They need to build towards and establish an identity, and then enforce, reinforce, and develop that identity throughout the course of the season. They need to be strategic in playing to their strengths and hiding their weaknesses on both sides of the ball. Staley needs to show that he's, not just a product of Aaron Donald and, kind of peak Jalen Ramsey. A year he had the number one defense with the Rams. Like when he was a head coach in San Diego, they weren't good defenses. He was in San Francisco last year. They weren't a great defense. Now they had injuries, sure, but like the overall track record is not great. It's just not. Like the one awesome season, but also it's like, was that a product of just having ridiculous talent around you? In some of the same ways where the best years under Dennis Allen was more of a product of having incredible talent than you being some maestro. Um, so coaching is the first domino that has to land. Kellen has to be a great game day coach, which means having a game plan, fully fleshed plan for all three phases, but also having the ability to adjust in game and make sure those adjustments are made on both sides and operate as that CEO, not just being the offensive coordinator like he has been and has had a lot of success doing, but truly managing and owning the team. If Kellen shows the ability to do that, That's the first domino that has to fall. If that one doesn't fall, there is no optimist version of this team. Like things are going to go wrong, things are going to go bad. They're nowhere remotely close to talented enough across the board to carry bad. The next item on the list is, it's legitimately been a bugaboo. Um, an element of that has been coaching and preparation, but like there's some other pieces into it. It's health. Like you need a healthy offensive line. You need healthy playmakers. We'll touch more on some of those things here in a couple minutes, but like health is a major component. As it turns out, stretching matters. Like one of those things I mentioned, Dennis Allen, terrible coach. When you have to be told that, yeah, actually, in fact, athletes do need to stretch before engaging in rigorous anaerobic activity. You shouldn't be coaching anything. You're not allowed to be in charge of anything because this is basic fourth grade PE shit. Um, so there's that. Like the health is obviously a huge part. They, like you're going to have injuries, but they can't get devastated the way they did last year and a couple of previous years. And some of that um, is actually going to go right into one of the first major things here. There needs to be a youth movement. You want to talk about the optimist view for this team. There's some key vets. We're going to call them out, but this has to be youth driven. This means this year's draft class. This means some contributions from last year's draft class, which right now looks like a terrible draft. Um, you need Penning to work out at left guard. You need Banks to work out at left tackle. You need Seizure not to be a disaster at right guard. Obviously, like we said, health. Like McCoy has to stay healthy. Falaga has to be just as good as he was last year at left tackle and his more natural right tackle position. That one seems pretty reliable. It's going to happen, but like it still has to happen. But when we talk about like the youth, it's also like you kind of have to phase out, sugar possum. Sorry, honey badger. Um, you have to phase out Demario. Like someone's got to step up in those spots. Honestly, to a degree, like either Pete needs to immediately return to rookie year Pete, which personally I don't actually think is a real thing. I think that was more of a product of the roster around him still being good enough to carry him, and as his responsibilities increased, um, and the overall surrounding talent went down, he looked more like the guy that he was at Ohio State. So it's okay. Well, the Stuntsman, he was a great athlete, didn't have amazing college film, but great athlete. Does Stutzman take his spot or does somebody else? Like linebacker is one of those spots. If you don't have good linebackers, like we're slow. Demario's still a good player, but he's not a great player anymore, or at least not an elite player. He's kind of he's more fringe. And there's games certainly last year where he looked his age, and then there's games where he's still Demario. But like you need youth there. They don't have anything but youth in the secondary. They need Chase Young is going to have to be the best version of himself. He's going to have to stop being the pressure king and actually create production. And like if he doesn't do that, you have basically no pass rush. You know, getting some true nose tackles, Godshaw, draft a guy. You have God, what was his name? Um, one of the young guys that didn't play last year. Um, Christian Boyd. That's who I was thinking of. Like one of those young guys. It would have been great last year to see Christian Boyd get run those last 7, 8 games of the season that didn't matter and just see, do you have anything here or not? Now we need that. And if Boyd's not going to get it, Godshaw, Vernon Broughton, like someone's got to play that spot. You need that real big mammoth, you know, gap guy, you know, to allow Brzee to be the best version of himself. Are you going to move Cam inside more? Like, are you going to be truly a 3-4 base? Cam probably maybe has a little bit more left in the tank there than he does purely on the outside. We'll see. Those are all things like all these have to happen. There's no optimist version of this team where these things don't happen. And that's just to get the defense to a baseline of not awful. Like the nose tackles have to work, which will help against the run. You need speed and improve play at the linebacker positions. You need speed and improve play at safety. Like Sanker's got to kick Honey Badger out, or at least on a lot of downs. Like someone's got to take over that spot. Alante, you have to figure out what's going on with him. Is he a safety? Is he a nickel? Like, what are they going to do with him? There's the hypothetical version is the version of him we saw early last year, where he was kind of in that CD role, where he was the nickel guy, he was an inbox guy, he was a super athlete that you just deployed it well. You blitzed him, you ran him, he created havoc. Yeah, he missed a few tackles, but some of those tackles led to like you had to dodge me, but then the next guy tackles him. So it's like it's still a positive play. Like he positively impacted the play, even though he missed the tackle. If he's back in that role and having that success, like you have to have that. We don't have any playmakers on defense right now. So like him becoming a weapon in the front seven, like in that first 10 yards in the box, you pick your term, but like that area of the field, he's so fast. He's plays his ass off. He's just kind of dumb. Like if you can weaponize that and control it and manage it, that does change the math on defense. Allows you to dictate more things, allows you to create advantage, allows you to create urgency from the offense, forces them to have to pay attention to somebody, which allows other guys to slot in other spots. Like it has a ripple effect. It has to happen. The optimist version of this is that it happens. Crazy athlete, it clicks for him. You put him in a role that works, put him in a role that fits. He stays engaged because he feels important to the defense and motivated. Contract year, so like, do you like money? I like money. Do you like money? Like all of those elements there, that has to hit. Again, that's just the defense. That's just for you have to be at a baseline of not terrible because last year's defense was terrible. I know Dennis Allen's a genius. Sure, yeah, don't listen to idiots in media. He's not, and like the defense was awful. They were food to pretty much everybody they went against. That has to change. They're not going to be dominant. You're not going to have a 1 year turnaround, especially with the type of draft that we had. We had a meat and potatoes draft. There was no juice, no flash, none of that. It's fine. All the meat and potatoes has to hit. You have to have the youth movement. You have to improve the defense. Now let's talk about offense. We're gonna get to the record here in a second. I'm not gonna make this a 45-minute video. Here's what has to happen on the offense. So quarterback has to work out. Now, I think if we're talking about the optimist version of the 2025 Saints, it has to be Spencer. And it's not just because I like Spencer a lot, which I liked him last year. I thought he showed flashes. There's a lot of things he needs to improve on, period. But I think he showed real flashes, real meaningful flashes in some pretty insanely adverse circumstances. I actually think it's more because of the style of play. Tyler Shuck, at this point in time, is a high variance quarterback. He's boomer bust. It's big plays. Now, he doesn't turn it over a ton, but it's still kind of big play or boo boo. And as a rookie, to come in, take over on a under talented team and win 10 games, that's really only going to happen if you have a really, really good defense, which I don't expect us to have. I'm praying we can get to slightly below average. That would be a massive improvement. Um, Spencer is more of an operator quarterback. He's a bit of a gunslinger, but those aren't mutually exclusive, but more of an operator type quarterback stylistically. Spencer's more likely to have a 12 to 15 play drive for a touchdown. Shuck is more likely to have a 5 or 6 play drive for a touchdown. Spencer can do that too, though. He's got a plenty big enough arm. He's a big play guy. He's aggressive. Like he's willing to take the shots and make the throw, especially when he has like actual NFL players around. So like we're just talking the best case scenario. I think it's more likely that Spencer wins the job in camp. starts the season out decently, plays well. You have some tough games early on in the season, builds momentum, and gets closer and closer to the best version of himself. Where we see that half against the Bucks both times, the half against the Raiders, the half against the Commanders, like that version of him. 65% of the time is the version we're getting. Is that or better? You can win 10 games with this schedule, if that's what you get. Now, it's not impossible for Shuck wins the job. It'd be an outlier, it'd be unexpected. Like, it's just less likely. He wins the job, executes really well, doesn't make mistakes, is really good under pressure, which was an area he really struggled with in college. Spencer's actually good under pressure, but he takes too many sacks. But those are different things. And he's not a super high turnover guy. And the type of pressure he was taking in, I won't make this a video all about Spencer, but like, could it happen for Shuck? Sure. It's not that it can happen. I just think it's more likely for Spencer because of style of play, being more experienced, a little bit better fit for the roster. Like the type of roster, the type of guys we have, kind of better fits his skill set than it does Shuck at this point in time. Because you need a great defense and a dominant run game to work with the type of quarterback that Shuck is, or at least projects to be. We don't really know what he is yet. He's a rookie. Um, So I think it's Spencer. Quarterback has to hit. Now, when I say hit, I don't mean freaking Drew Brees. That would be asinine. Um, if either of them can get to, and this is a way lower bar than idiots on Twitter will try to act like it is, but like if either of them can get to the baseline of play that like good Derek Carr was here, which honestly I think both of them can get to as a rookie. Shuck can, and honestly, in games last year, Spencer played quarterback as good or better than Carr did for major stretches of that season under way worse circumstances. That's just a fact. I'm sorry. If you don't like facts, get over it. But that's going to have to hit. Again, health, which is a huge part for the whole Olave situation. He's a stud, but you need health. Olave being the best version of himself, which is again part of why I think it's got to be Spencer if we're going to have the optimist view for this team and this season and this roster. Neither quarterback is insanely accurate. Spencer's more accurate. Again, more of an operator, more of a timing guy, more likely to hit those routes and maximize Chris, which then also helps maximize Shaheed, Cooks. I like Bub Means. I don't think Bub Means is going to have 800 yards, but maybe 400. Juwan maybe gets 300 yards last few games of the season, usual Juwan style. Or we talked about youth. Maybe Holger. He showed, some flashes. He's got some talent. Tight end is usually a second year position. Like it takes a year to fully ramp in. And he was a UDFA, and they had terrible coaching, and Kubiak couldn't design a pass game to save his life. There's a lot of factors there. Plus, again, Rizzy didn't want to play all the young guys. Like he wanted to play all the vets. We saw how that worked out for him. Like there's a lot of factors there. So maybe, talented kid. They gave him a ton of money last year as a UDFA. Shows some ability, maybe he pops off. Like that's certainly going to help the offense. The other thing you're going to need is, like I mentioned earlier, the entire O line has to work. You don't need to be a dominant unit. I mean, if they are, it would be awesome. It would be huge, and that theoretical potential for that exists. Banks is, if Banks is just as good or better than Fuaga was last year, and Fuaga is just as good as Fuaga was last year, and Penning is a heat level left guard, which I think he can. Really good in the run game, occasional what the just happened in the passing game, but overall a good player. And Ruiz is just not a damn disaster, which is to me might actually be the biggest question on the O line, not Penny. Like throughout the entire course of the season, I'm actually almost more worried about Ruiz than I am Penning because at least we know Penning can be a really, really, really good run blocker. There's nothing I'm sure Ruiz is really, really, really good at other than getting the quarterback in. But if that works out, the O line is playing really, really well, and your receiving group stays largely healthy. Like the other thing, and this is the optimist view. Like you need Kendra to hit. I'm not worried about AK. AK will be fine. AK's style of play and the type of athlete he is, and the type of preparation he does for his body, he's going to age gracefully as far as running backs are concerned. Um, Kendre is an insanely talented back. I mentioned earlier, the Saints added absolutely no juice on either side of the ball this entire offseason. None. I mean, you want to if you want to argue Sanker and Stuntsman are a little bit juicy, okay, but like really like impact player, needle mover type guys, not a drop. Just famished in this bitch. But you could also argue that a healthy season of a motivated and ready to play Kendre Miller would be an offseason acquisition because we've never seen that before. Well, talent wise, he has the ability to be an impact guy for this team. He's plenty explosive enough to be a home run threat. He's got good vision. He's got good balance. They run the scheme I think they're going to do in the run game. He fits it really well. If the O line is blocking well, if he's healthy and motivated, it is a huge help for the team. And because of AK's skill set, you can play them both on the field at the same time. You can do a lot of things with that. So Kendre is an X factor for sure. The optimist version of things, Kendre works out. Kendre plays 16, 17 games. He's in shape. He's motivated. He wants to prove he's not a bust and a failure, and known more for his strip club activities than what he does on the freaking football field. Okay, like that's the optimist version. So if we have the optimist version, what does the schedule look like? Here's what it looks like to me. I think the optimist version of things, I think Arizona is extremely beatable. Uh, I think you probably lose to San Francisco. I think San Francisco is a better team and roster than all the circumstances they have. Like San Francisco is the team Mickey thinks the Saints are, as far as like they were really, really injured with a ton of stuff, but they're still a pretty good roster, and I think they had a good draft. That's what Mickey thinks the Saints are. I don't. I think you lose to San Francisco. I think Seattle's okay. I think Seattle's okay. I think they're super beatable. Like I don't think the Seahawks are some unbeatable team even in Seattle. And with the time of the year, I don't expect the weather there to be awful. I think you can run on them. I think you can pass on them. Like I don't think their defense is not phenomenal. And look, I think Darnold is going to turn right back into a pumpkin, and that O line over there is brutal. If there is one game this season where the Saints pass rush might look pretty good, it's probably that game. Buffalo's going to beat the brakes off the Saints. Like, if the Saints beat the Buffalo Bills, it will be because the Buffalo Bills phone that game in, which they can do. They have done that before. Um, but that's the way they win that game. So that one's a loss. I think they can beat the Jets. I think the Jets are better and more talented than people give them credit for. I think they had bad coaching and awful quarterback play last year, but also their starting quarterback is Justin Fields. And until proven otherwise, I think Justin Fields is a bad quarterback. So we're being optimistic. If the Saints defense is just not terrible, I think Spencer or Shuck, but again, I'm predicting Spencer is capable of beating those guys. Same thing with the Patriots. I think the Patriots did get better this year. I think Drake May is going to be probably really, really good. I think they're probably another year or so away from like really making any type of meaningful improvement as far as record because just that roster is still pretty bad. But they got a really good coach, so who knows? But I'm gonna call it a win. We're being optimistic. I think Chicago was a way more talented team than they played last year. I think they had awful coaching. I think Ben Johnson is going to be a really, really, really good head coach. Um, I've really liked what I've seen from him. I think like schematically he's incredibly impressive, but I think the roster fits there. I think the way he's approached the offseason fits. The worst part of this is predicting that Dennis Allen gets a win in the Superdome. Or sorry, no, that'd be in Chicago. So never mind, not in the Superdome, which DA's used to losing there anyway. So that would have been wonderful. But that's the grossest part. But I kind of see that as an L. I think they can beat Tampa Bay at home. Again, we're being optimistic. They played Tampa Bay pretty well. The second game last year, the first one got out of hand. The O line just went completely to shit. Bowles just was blitzing Spencer a rookie with no line and no weapons literally every single play, and that was all she wrote. Gonna lose to the Rams. The Rams are really, really good. Um, I think they can beat the Panthers, especially. Yeah, I don't think the Panthers are ready. They could surprise. I think they're going to split against the Falcons. I think they beat them at home. Honestly, I think Miami is. I think Miami is a team on the decline. I think they're going to be extremely beatable. I think the time of the season that's a winnable game. So we're being optimistic. They will win the winnable games, or at least enough of them. Again, split with the Bucks. I think they split with the Panthers. Um, I think they can beat the Giants. The Giants are not good. Um, I thought I was okay on Dart. I was, you know, I think it documented it pretty well. I was higher on Shador than Dart as far as like just like what I like in a quarterback, but I think Dart is 1 to 2 years away anyway. I think the Saints can beat the Giants. Um, we're being optimistic. They should beat the Titans. Now, if Cam Ward is just studly as a rookie, again, the Saints defense is a massive question, especially their secondary. But like the Titans also have like no weapons, so I think they can beat the Titans. I'm predicting they split with Atlanta. You can flip the games around there, but like that gets you to 10 wins. And if we take this like one layer deeper, again, just we're being the optimist view here. So everything works out on the Saints side reasonably. They win most of their winnable games. The teams where I really just see them getting the brakes beat off them: San Francisco, Buffalo, Chicago, LA Rams. That's it. Like now the Bucks could beat the brakes off the Saints both games because the Bucks are the better team and they're really well run right now and they should. But it's a division game, and while the Bucks are definitely better and very good, they're also beatable. So like a split there would not shock me. So I can totally see 10 wins happen. The next video won't be nearly as positive because we're going to take the pessimist view. Now I'm not going to call it the realist view because like we'll really we'll get into like hardcore predictions and what I think is going to happen after we get to see preseason. I want training camp and preseason before I try to make any type of declarative statements because I mean without like real data and at least some amount of like evidence to go off of it would just be it would be absurd. But I legitimately think if everything broke right, the Saints could win 10 games. Coaching hits, they stay healthy, and you have a real youth movement, and one of the two quarterbacks wins the job. Again, I for a variety of reasons, I think it's more likely to be Spencer, but regardless which one it is, they win the job and they play well. O line hits, run game hits. Like I think there's a very real possibility of them winning 10 games and being infinitely more fun than they have been since Sean Payton uh, basically decided he didn't want to deal with Mickey Loomis anymore and retired for a year. That's what happened. Um, so yeah, that's where we're at. I think, like I said, 10-7 is totally a thing on the table. I think that would potentially have them in a wild card spot. It would make for a, all things considered, really really fun season. So fingers crossed we get the optimist view. Tell me what you guys think in the comments section. Do all those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe if you feel like it. Always appreciated, and can't wait to hear what you guys think.